Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we thank y'all for coming out and checking out, clicking on the link, logging in, and checking out this mobile music production and DJing workshop being brought to you by Fulton County Arts and Culture, made possible by the Fulton County Board of Commissioners. We thank you very much for making this possible. I go by the name of Logisticalstyles, aka DJ Logic. We're about to get this started. This is the second in a series of 4 workshops. Last week we did the introduction. Today we're going to dive more into the beat making process. This is all about making music on your mobile devices, specifically your iPads, your iPhones, and other devices as well, but we're going to focus on the Apple devices. So now, with all that said and done, let's get into the workshop. Once again, like I said, I'm your host, DJ Logic, aka Logisticalstyles, and we're back in the studio working on some more music. Last week was the beginning. It was the first in the series of 4. We were going over making music. We were going over some DJing as well. DJing and stuff is going to start next week and the week after. And then hopefully after this workshop ends at the end of October, we're going to keep flourishing and moving on into spreading out into different aspects of DJing, not just the broad general sense that we're doing in this workshop. But if you were here last week, we went over the Launchpad app, which is the app that I use a lot for making beats, and we also went over Blocs Wave, which are both made by the same company, Amplify. So if you want to follow along, or if you want to practice what you're learning, I would suggest that you go to your app store and download it if you haven't already. This session is like all the other ones are going to be recorded and available for you to come back and follow up and rewind and look at some of the things that I explained that you may have not gotten the first time around. So let's actually back up a little bit. Right now I'm in Blocs Wave, and that's what you see right here. This is the app that where I usually start my beat making process in, and then I move over to Launchpad. But let's look at a couple of things, because this is not just an iPad class or not just an iPhone class, it's an iOS class. So these apps that I'm going to be talking about are available in the App Store, and they're available for both the iPad and for the iPhone. They look very similar to each other, but because of the screen, the space that you have on the screen, they lay out a little bit differently. The iPad gives you a little bit more of a full view, and the iPhone is a little bit more compact. So let's just, let me switch views real quick, and let's actually jump into a quick review from last week. So we'll get this started. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so these are the 2 apps. This is what you're going to see when you are searching for it in the App Store. You see Launchpad and you see Blocs Wave. They're both made by the company Amplify, and they also partnered up with Novation, who has these pieces of hardware, MIDI devices that you can use. We went over that last week. And you can also connect those to your iPad using different adapters or different other pieces of hardware. But what I'm going to be doing in this workshop is going to be working pretty much primarily on the mobile devices, because I want you to see how you can be making beats while you're out and about doing just everyday stuff, whether you're waiting in line on a long road trip, or anything where you're just stuck and it's just you and your device. You can whip this out, and instead of mindlessly scrolling on social media or playing games or doing other stuff, you could be making beats and starting ideas that you can carry on. If you go into a studio, or if you get home and in front of your computer, you can dump them onto there and continue the beat making process. So I'm just really showing you how to get started with this stuff, but once you really dig deeper in, you'll start to see that there is a lot more you can do, especially when you start adding accessories like the USB adapters and MIDI controls and other pieces of equipment that you can really use to open up the software. So let's see. The third app was the iMPC Pro 2. I'm going to try to get into that as well. This is a 1-hour workshop, so I'm going to try to be conscious of the time and not, dwell on too many things too long. But when I'm in Launchpad and Blocs Wave, I can really get sidetracked and start digging through the large number of sounds and loops and sound packs that you have for those apps. But the same thing can also be said about iMPC Pro 2. And if you are a more traditional beat maker that you're used to the MPC, the actual hardware itself, this app is a good transition into, it's a great, not a replacement, but it's a great version or another iteration of the MPC. And this is made by Akai Professional. They actually are the makers of the real MPC, and they are kind of publishing the iMPC Pro app, but it's actually made by a company called Retronyms. So if you're looking for it in the App Store, you may see that name, Retronyms. That's also the company that is the developer of the app, and Akai is the publisher. Now, with all that said and done, let's go back into, we're going to get started. I was messing around with some stuff earlier today in Blocs Wave, and that's kind of what you heard as you came into the workshop. That's what I was playing in the background. And we're going to start from scratch. First, I do want to give you a quick view of it from the iPhone, because even though I'm going to be working primarily on the iPhone, on the iPad, a lot of this stuff is on the app on the iPhone. And let me just pull this up right here. So I just recently downloaded it back onto my iPhone, so I get these notifications or these questions popping up. But anyway, let me switch camera so you can see it overhead. All right, so this is it on the iPhone. This is what I downloaded. This is how it looks when you open it. You can tell that it looks very similar to the iPad layout. The iPad just kind of spreads it out a little bit more. And you get a little bit more labeling on the icon. So you see this icon that says discover, browse, edit, record. You got the same thing on the iPhone, but it's just the icon itself. So you know that's discover, browse, edit, and then record. So that's what it looks like on the iPhone. If you're following along with me, the biggest difference you're going to notice is that everything happens in the portrait view versus on the iPad, it's the landscape view. So let's go back to there. And as I mentioned last week, this is kind of a one-man show. So I'm doing all the switching between the cameras and monitoring the stream, checking to see if there's any actual comments or anything that I need to respond to, or anything that needs my attention. So for the most part, I'm just watching the stream here, and let's get started in Blocs Wave. So Blocs Wave gives you this interface when you show up. Initially, this top row is actually, let me switch camera one more time. Initially, this top row where you see these different blocks, these are going to be empty, and you will go through and you will fill each of these sections. Okay, each of these sections that I'm flipping through, these are parts of a song. So as you're playing your beat, you switch through these, the song will move and the song will change according to what you put into those blocks. And what I usually start off with is a set of blocks. Actually, what I start off with is I start building up a section full of the sounds that I want. Then what I do is I copy that all the way across all those, and then I go back to the beginning section and I start muting stuff. So what I want my beats to do is to kind of start off sparse, then build up. I usually start with drums, then add a second drum track, add a bass line, then I get into my melodies, or I might even dabble with the percussion, and then go into melodies, and then add any other effects that I want to trigger just for accent within the beat. So that's just a basic way I do it, but let's start, let's kind of dig in. So actually the best way I think to do this is for me to start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is hit this top left corner button with the 3 lines, and that brings up your projects menu, which allows you to start a project from scratch or pull up previous projects that you worked on. One thing that's cool about Blocs Wave and Novation, and actually most iOS apps I've worked with on music, they will randomly generate some name. So like these are the names of the beats, whatever that I've worked on, and these are names that were just generated by the iPad or by the app itself. So you see these weird names like Harmonic Blur, Paradise Lost, Vacation Vibe. Some of them sound cool, like Paradise Lost as a name, but they're just very random pairings of words. So if I was to do plus, it came up with a name called Modern Worm. You know, I'm actually going to change that name, but it pulls up this right here. You get your first section. If I hit this number 1 that's in the oval, it shows how many sections I have available to work with. I got 6 sections to work with. So let me go back to focus on this first section that I'm in. And you see this cluster of colored blocks. And what they are, this is how you can search for sounds to add to your music, to your beat. It's cool because it has a little bit of artificial intelligence involved with it, where it will try to find the beat that kind of fits best with what you have. So it considers what key you're in, what speed or BPM you're in, the feel of the beat. So it will recommend stuff on that. You don't have to use that. That's just the auto feature that it has. So if you're stuck and you're lacking motivation, you can always pull that up and just hit the auto button and it will suggest something. I don't always go with those suggestions. I usually just flip through it until I get an idea for something else that I might want to add and kind of create it. But let's start with the drums. So the block that I have highlighted, you see these different blocks right here. So I'm starting with this first block. This block is going to be your drums. I start with my drums. So you can either just hit for random drums and it will bring up different sounds. Hit it again, it'll switch. Hit it again. Now what you can do, hit stop right here on this right side. You can go in here and you can define your BPM. You can hit this to tap it down, and I'm a East Coast hip hop guy, so my stuff is usually in the 90 something range. Or you can tap to get the BPM you want, but I just prefer to use my plus and minus to get to where I want to go. Let's go with a 97 BPM beat. So that kind of sets the feel for the beat. So, and as you see that I'm flipping through to kind of get these automatic suggestions, as it pulls up different loops, it's going to adjust the BPM to that loop. Until I really settle upon something, I'm just going to, even though it switched it to 93, I'm going to keep that. And let's move on to the next block. I'll bring another drum beat in. Now, anything else I bring in is going to be coming in at 93 BPM because the first drum sounds that I chose were at 93. I don't like that. Don't like that. So those two work together. So we'll keep that. And I'm going to be going somewhat fast because, like I said, when I get into this, I can really just, time flies. You can lose track of time. And I want to get as much of this info in as possible. And with me juggling back between, the screens and all that, it's kind of hard to keep up with, but I'll do my best to keep you in the loop. So now I got that going. let's go to this next block and let's pull up a bass line. But instead of doing it the way I pulled up the drums, I'm gonna browse. So I'm gonna get out of Discover, I'm gonna go to the browse, which is right here. So browse, when you hit that, then you see on your left side your sounds that were in those little hexagons, your bass, your drum effects, melodic, melody, percussion, and recorded and vocal stuff. That is all going to be, your sounds are going to be organized that way. So now if I want to, I've got my two drum tracks over there running. I want to add a bass line, but I don't want to just get random bass lines added. I want to kind of go through, and these are different sound packs. Now each sound pack is broken up into each sound pack, like you'll see chill hop, chill step, and they have different numbers of basses. Then chill step, that sound pack also has some drums. It also has an effects. It also has melodies and all that. But when you're in your browser, you have them separated, so you can kind of avoid stuff that obviously doesn't fit. Like I'm doing like a hip hop beat, so I probably wouldn't choose any chiptune type stuff or cinematic pop bass lines. Although sometimes you can mix and match genres, you know, elements from different genres to come up with something real cool or funky. So don't be afraid to experiment. But what I'm trying to do is trying to get directly into coming up with a beat, because what we're going to do is we're going to export what we do here in Blocs Wave over to Launchpad. What we're going to do right here is I'm going to fill up this first section just so you can see how it works and how I can alter stuff and even copy and paste. But then I'm going to go back to that other beat I had, because everything was kind of already put into place, and that beat was at the point where I was ready to dump it over into Launchpad. And that's a whole nother process. So let's go ahead and fill this up. Let me search for some stuff. This is a hip hop beat, so let's go into the classic hip hop bass lines. You can always get more. These are just the names of the sound packs, so don't think that these are the only classic hip hop sounding bass lines you can get. So kind of like that. I can deal with that. And then as you are auditioning sounds and you might kind of like it, but you feel like you might need to tweak it up a little bit, you can go into edit. So whatever pad is highlighted fully, that's what you're editing. So if I like that bass line, but I think it's a little bit too low, I can boost it up. I can also go into EQ, and you get a equalizer where you can just adjust different settings. You want to have more, it's a little bit too much bass, but you see what I can do just by touching and dragging. All right, let's move on to the next block. Let's go to the browser, and I think I want some percussion to go along with this. Sometimes I go right into melody, but I like at least a track of percussion because I usually take up 2 blocks for the melody. Let's see. And I try not to use sounds strictly from the same packs, because a lot of these packs, when they are organized, you can play a row of them and it's actually a song, a beat that's been kind of deconstructed. These are just the stems that are being triggered. So if you end up using all the same bass, if you use the bass line, the drums, the melody and percussion all from the same sound pack, it's a very good chance that your beat is going to sound like something that's already out there, something that's been produced already, something that's been already released. So the idea behind this app, and any kind of app where you're stacking and mixing and matching loops, you're trying to come up with something different. And you're not just stacking loops on top of loops, because you want to be able to edit this stuff to make it sound or make it be more unique to you. And I'm going to show you some editing with the next step when I pull in my percussion. Let's see, hopefully this isn't too loud and my mic sounds good. All right, so let's see. right, I kind of dig with that. Let's come over here and get a melody. All right, let me go back to that percussion because that cowbell, it's too much cowbell. Doesn't need more cowbell, needs less cowbell. And one thing, let me show you this while we're in this editing screen. You see these little circles right here? You can pull, shorten your loop. You can change the length of the loop. Let me stop the beat for a second. You can go into slicer mode where it slices up. This loop right here, you can slice it up, and then you got this. And then within that, you can make it do a random. You can assign it to do some kind of random pattern. See, notice because I just hit those dice, it's doing this random playback of these different slices. So actually, if I hit this little speaker icon up here under the number 1, that solo is the sound that I'm working with. So you see how it kind of sliced up and randomized the playback of these slices. I can clear that and let's see, undo. Let me stop that. Let's go back into browser, edit. Let's see. So what I ended up doing there was I cleared out all of the notes. Not cool. So let me go back to loop. And I'm gonna work with that. So that just kind of showed you a little bit of the editing that can be done with Blocs Wave. There's more that you can do. There are in-app purchases that you can get, which allow you to open up more features, and you'll see that more when you get into Launchpad because there's other effects that you can get, but they're in-app purchases because these apps are free to download. Blocs Wave, Launchpad are free to download, and then you purchase your sound pack, you purchase your effects and other features as you get more into the app. iMPC Pro is not free. There's the iPad version and the iPhone version. The iPhone version is a little bit cheaper. I think it comes in around $14. The iPad version is about $25. So it seems like a lot for an app, but you do get what you pay for. It's a really good app, and you'll see that as I get into it. But I just wanted to mention that as we were going through. Next, let's get into, let's see. Let's try this. We will go into the next block, which is the melodies. Let me browse for some melodies. Actually, I'm going to take the lazy route and see what can come up automatically. All right, I kind of can go with that. Maybe another set of drums can come in on that. And right now I'm just gonna really fill in a lot of stuff. All right, so I filled up all the blocks. The last block was the effects. It's usually a one-shot sound that you can trigger I don't really get too much into those. I, find little small scratches or other little sound effects just to give a little accent, but that's always an afterthought because I can do that in so many other different ways, including actually scratching, which is, what I do, scratch records with beats, and it's more fun when you make your own beats. So what we have here, this is the first section. If I go back to this one that's in the oval, I can click on that, and you'll see a representation of all the sounds I put in there. So what I do, my process when I'm making beats in Blocs Wave is I'll go ahead and copy this all the way across. If you hold down on that section, you'll get a menu that pops up that allows you to do a copy of the pattern. So I'll hit copy, and then if I hold down on a blank one, I can do paste and do that all the way across. Paste, 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 paste. All right. And the reason I do that is because with a song, you're kind of, or at least when I make my songs, I start out sparse and I build up and get to a point where almost everything is playing, or you got the most activity going. That's usually like your hook or your chorus. And then you got your verses where things are removed, elements of the song are removed, so you can have more room for your vocals, your rapper or your singer or your other instrument that's going to be featured on the song. So that's usually how I make mine. And what you're doing in Blocs Wave is you're creating segments that can kind of build up to that. So somewhere around these middle two, block or section number 3 and section number 4, these are the ones that would have the most activity on it. And section number 1 might be very sparse. It might not have a lot of that going. And what I just did was I swiped up on the block, and that mutes it. That stops it from playing for that section. If I go into the other section, it's still lit up. So each section is going to be independent of the others, which really works out well because you want your song to flow. So, and I'm just doing some random muting right here because I want you to see what's happening. And we're going to jump into the other beat, and you can see how I actually put together a song that I was trying to be somewhat serious about. That, there. I don't even know what this is going to sound like because this is all extremely random. But let's start here from the first section, and as I start going through the sections, you'll see how the song moves. This is section number 1. This would be like the intro of the song. So I hit the second section, and you see how the beat changed up a little bit. Other elements came out, and another element came in, I believe. Yeah, so in this section I have 2 melodies going versus the first one, which just had this one melody going. So now I got both of those going. Move on to the next one, the next section. See how that switched up now? And that's how the song works, or that's how the song progresses when you're using Blocs Wave. But if you'll notice, I'm not recording anything. There's actually no record button that you can see here. It's only a stop and a play button. And the reason for that is we're going to take this project and we're going to dump it into Launchpad. Launchpad is the other app I showed you last week where the screen looks kind of like this. It's just a big grid of different blocks, and all the sounds are going to be assigned to those blocks. So across here will be a set of drums, bass, percussion, melody, all that. And you can trigger the song or trigger the beats that way, and that's where you actually do your recording of the beat that you created. I think for this section I might also drop a beat. Yeah. All right. So I filled up all those sections of this song. Now what I'm going to do is click on this arrow, or this box with the arrow pointing up in the top right corner of the app, right next to the information icon, between the information icon and the BPM. You see that box? That's, if you're familiar with iOS devices, that's your share icon. So you click on that and you get an option. You get options to either share that particular section that you were working on. You can share the all the files for this beat that you were working on. That's if you were like working with someone in studio and you just want to dump it over to the main workstation so you can actually finish it there, and you would have all your stems or your sound files. You can export those. It would come out as a zip file. Or you can also export it to Ableton Live. If you have that on your computer, you can just dump it over there and it looks a lot easier. It goes in very well, it fits in perfectly, and you can pick up the project right there in Ableton just by dumping it that way. And then lastly, you get the option for dumping into Launchpad. Now, when you dump into Launchpad, let's see. All right, so when you dump into the Launchpad app, you get the choice to, and I think for both of those options, whenever you choose whatever option you want to export to, you can choose an AAC file or a WAV file. I usually choose WAV files because that's what I'm more comfortable working with, but you can export to either. And what it's doing now is it is packaging all that up, and it's going to have it ready for me to open up as a project within Launchpad. And see how it just switches over to the Launchpad app? All right, so from here, let's take a quick minute to switch it up. So this is the app right here. This is where all the sounds that I was working with in Blocs Wave, they are lined up according to how I was using them. Now, if you look onto the app, you'll notice the rows. This is kind of like with the grid I was talking about. So with Launchpad, you get these rows, and this will all be drums. This will all be bass. They'll all be similar sounds, because what I'm gonna do is, like say I wave my finger across this top row, that gets all those going. So basically that's the first section. That's the first section that we were messing with in Blocs Wave. So why did we jump over to Launchpad? What's the benefit of working in Launchpad versus Blocs Wave, or ending the project in Launchpad versus Blocs Wave? Well, you get the option for your effects. When I hit this little tab here on the bottom, you get your effects. That pulls those up, and then you get different effects like stutters, filters, flangers, so you can do that. You can't do that within Blocs Wave. Then there's other filters you can add to specific drum sounds. Let's see. You can adjust your volumes, and all of this is being done on screen. But you can actually do this if you had a USB device connected with the dongle, or you use the dock. They make all different kinds of control surfaces that stimulate the knobs or connect to the knobs that you're seeing on your app. So, and I did mention that time flies when I do these workshops. It's already like past 30 minutes within it, and we just now got to Launchpad. So let me go back to the main screen. This is your main screen on Launchpad. So what I'm doing is just swiping across, and that triggers everything in that row. But if I wanted to, I can just mix match. And the beauty of this app is all these samples or stems are going to be triggered in time. They're going to stay and keep the time of the project that I started with. If I was to go look at the BPM here, you see it's at 93 BPM. If I wanted to, I could slow it down. But it sounds better at 93 because that's what I originally started it with. If you want to, now let me stop it. Now that I've got the beat stopped, if I want to, I'm gonna show you real quick how the recording process goes, and then I'll jump out of this particular project because this was something we made in Blocs Wave, and as you can notice or you can see, not all the blocks are there, so we're kind of limited. So this is why my beat making process evolves from one app to the next app onto another device. So I'm starting with Blocs Wave, then I get here to Launchpad, and there's so much more I could do. I can import other sounds and put them on that pad, and that would allow me to introduce even more sounds as well. Let's see if I can do that here. No, I would have to go into the editing of the pads. So say I went here. It allows me to go right back into Blocs Wave and edit that pad. I can add a sound or change a sound or tweak a sound. And the same can be done with the different effects. But as I mentioned with in-app purchases, your effects and stuff, these are in-app purchases. You can spend $1.99 for it. You get a little video, shows you how to use it. And the same thing with all these others. Some of them are more expensive. Some of them go up to $2.99 or possibly more. But I usually work with what's there in the app, and then as I find that I need more features, that's when I start to make those purchases within the app. And I hope y'all are taking the time, or you actually get an opportunity to download these apps and play around with them. Like I said, they're free to download. If you got an iOS device, you can go to the App Store and download them, and you can come up with different ideas, even if you just want to work with just presets. And I'll show you that in a second too. But let's go back to here. Let's get out of there. We're back in our main screen. So now if you want to record, say you're comfortable going through all these sections and you like the way the beat is moving, and you want to hit that record button. Well, record is right here, top right, not the play button, but to the left of it, right next to the speedometer little symbol, is this circle. So recording is armed. As soon as I start or I trigger a loop, I don't have to trigger a whole row, but even if I trigger any loop, the recording process starts and it won't stop until I hit stop. So let's try this. Notice the record icon turned red. Bringing in some more drums. So you see how I slowly brought those in instead of just swiping across. I could have just did that, but this gives me a little bit more room to put some movement or some space within the beat. That was a little offbeat, but I'm just triggering stuff and working with different effects so you can see how the process goes. And the switch ups are really what gives you a lot of head nod to it, because you get stuck on monotonous loops going over and over again, but then when that switch up comes, that's when you get that head nod going. That's why I like working on beats like this. So just kill that bass, the cowbell. And in order to stop a sound, you just tap it. If the block is lit up, tapping it makes it stop. Tapping it again brings it back. And you'll notice that all these sounds are the same because this is one song and different sections within the song that I built. So as I was going through those sections in Blocs Wave, my first group was always the same drums. Second group was the same drums, the same for the bass line. All I'm gonna do right here is try to slowly bring this song to an end. then I hit stop. And once I hit stop, I have several notifications showing up here, but this one here with the 1, that shows that there's a new recording. That's what I just recorded. If I go into the recordings, you'll see it up here. It just names it after the generic name it gave. So this is Modern Worm, that was recorded at October 11, 2020 at 7:40 p.m. my time. If I hit play on it or hit that, I can bring it up. I get the option to either share it right away as a WAV or AAC file. If I was to share it, I can airdrop it to my Mac. I can email it. I can send a link in a text. So there's a lot of ways you can share your creations within the Launchpad app. But if I want to, I can just play it from here, kind of see what I did, what I created. See, this is just a playback with me bringing sounds in gradually. So that's the playback on it. All the switch ups and everything I did got recorded. So if I was to hit the share button, I can share the audio. I've never actually shared the video of it. It would be interesting if it actually shows the pads going. But you'll see that I get the option to share it with the people I most recently shared something to. I can airdrop. I can choose other apps to share it with. I can go into sharing it with Blocs Wave. I'm not sure where I can share it with Teams. Maybe if you want your coworkers to hear what you're doing. You want to share your beats with your coworkers, you can do that. Or you can email it using the native email app on the iPhone, or you can send it as a message, and as I mentioned, you can airdrop it. We're not going to do that. In fact, what we're going to do is I'm going to close out of this beat, and I'm going to go and open up something new. So these are the sound packs. These are all the different sounds that I've purchased, downloaded, and you can also record your sounds. You can do that within Blocs Wave as well. There's so much you can do, and we're already at the 43-minute mark. I'm going to go over. I know I am. So, because I haven't even touched what I wanted to go into. So these are the sound packs. These are where you can download your different sounds. This Jazz Fusion is the most recent one I downloaded. And when I pull it up, you'll see that all these are already populated. So these are all the different sounds I can work with. And unlike on that project I pulled in from Blocs Wave, where it was just a whole bunch of the same sounds per row, and I was just mixing and matching and reorganizing, these are different sounds. So this is a different drum. See different patterns, different drum sets are being used, and the same way I was swiping my finger across a row in order to trigger them all, and I mentioned that, you know, these sound packs are kind of built as songs that have been deconstructed into stems that allow you to mix and match. Well, this is where you're going to be able to see that, because I can swipe here, and it sounds like already a put together beat. It's probably like an 8-bar beat, and it will just keep going. It might be a little bit longer. Some of the loops are longer than others, which is cool. That's what I love about this app, because the drum beat might just be a 4-bar loop or 8-bar loop, but the melody might be 16, and it keeps it all in time. It keeps it all in sync, and then you can mix and match with stuff. So maybe I don't like that drum beat. See how I switched the drum beat and it kind of pulled the beat back a little bit, even though the speed is still the same. Let me change up that percussion. Different sub, different bass. So I'm just messing around with different combinations of drums, percussion, bass, and melodies. And you can even get some effects. And all of that is just different combinations of sounds. So like this piano. And the loop is as long as it takes the little white dot to move around. Let me see if I can get it better. All right, so you see the line or the dot going around on that circle? That's the length of the loop. And see how it just pretty much seamlessly just restarts and just loops, bringing some drums. A little bell for the effect. So yeah, now that was jazz fusion, so it sounded very jazz fusionish. So the different sound packs that you go to, they're gonna have different feels to them. You got a neo soul sound pack right here, which is not gonna be quite as jazzy, but funky though. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I want to go into, let's record something real quick, and I'll play back and then add some cuts to it, and then we can jump into, I might even skip the adding cuts to it because I want to jump right into iMPC Pro. So let's record something real quick. This is going to be a really random recording, but I'm going to record it and I'll make it available somehow, maybe put it on SoundCloud or something for you to play around with, because what I'm doing with all these beats that I'm making even in the workshop and outside of the workshop is getting ready for next week when we get into DJing. And as I mentioned last week, because this is YouTube, I can't just be DJing with commercially available music. I got to come up with some original stuff so I don't get flagged for copyright and get muted and all that stuff. So next week when we're DJing and we're going over those apps and learning how to mix music, we'll be using music that is original and that we can post, and we don't have to worry about getting flagged, and we can put it on our Facebook channels. You can go Facebook Live with it. You can do whatever you want with it. All these loops are royalty free. There are some sound packs you can get that are created by specific artists or producers, and those have different end user license agreements that prohibit you from selling creations using those. It's, I guess, more for like a training for you to learn how to make beats. But generally speaking, the sound packs that you buy from like Loop Masters or even within the app itself, they all have, if you don't believe me, you can read the end user license agreement. It tells you that yes, you can use these beats, you just can't repackage them and sell them as is. You can't take this neo soul sound pack and all the sounds that make it up and put it on a disc and sell it to someone and say, I got a sound pack, and sell it as something other than what it is. So that's the only limitation on it. But yeah, if you are working on a project, and whether it's your demo you're trying to get put out there, your mixtape or your album, or if you have, I'm going through this myself, I'm starting to get into making videos because I do drum videos, and you need music for these videos. So instead of going to license music or license or paying for music, or going to the hassle of clearing a copyright, or even with YouTube, they allow you to purchase music, but some of the music is not really what you wanted to use, you can just make your own stuff. And that's what I've been doing, because the sound packs are very varied. It's not just hip hop, it's not just jazz, R&B, there's dance, there's house, there's EDM, there's cinematic soundscapes in there that you can use, and I find those very handy for my drum videos. You can also, if you're a DJ and you just want to scratch, you can make loop beats that you can just scratch over and it never ends. You can keep doing that. But there's so many things you can do with this music because it's royalty free and you don't have to worry about anything other than just paying for the sounds. And then from there, it's up to you to do something with the sounds. Like I always say, I always recommend, don't just stack loops on top of loops from different loop packs. You have to alter them, adjust them, make them yours, you know. And that's what I'm doing when I'm putting scratches over them, when I'm, you know, remixing or hitting my effects, filters, when I'm in Blocs Wave and I'm editing those sounds before I bring them into Launchpad. That's all I'm doing to make it more my own. And that was just a very high level surface introduction to it, because there's more you can do within Blocs Wave. You can actually import other virtual instruments, whether it be another app or what have you, but you can bring in different sounds and play them, record yourself playing them, and throw it on those pads. We're running short on time, but I'm gonna keep going, and I wanna bring up the next app. I'm gonna skip the recording because I already showed you how to record something within Launchpad, but I really do wanna get into pulling up iMPC Pro. There's just so many different apps that you can use to make beats, and I don't wanna linger too long on just one. So this is iMPC Pro. iMPC Pro 2, and like I said, it brings up the same interface that you're used to seeing with the regular MPC. You have your pads, you have the slider, you have your 16 levels, so you can really, you know, do some stuff. I'm gonna pull up. I'm not even sure if there's something on this particular one. If I go in the song, no. Let me close that one. Let's go to this one. This is probably one of the last things I was playing around with. And yeah, this is a beat. So if I just hit play. So this is just all. What I like about the MPC app is you're going to be a lot more original with it. Yeah, you can get some loops that you can throw in it, but when I work with the MPC, I'm working with one shots. I'm working with hits, drum hits, hits of the horns, string hits, you know, one shots. You hit it, and that type of thing. And I like to bring it all together and create something, which is what we did here. Now I can go into my tracks here, and you can see these are the different tracks or audio tracks that I use in making this. You can mute and solo. That was a combination of a couple things. So I had started off with, I liked that. It was like a driving beat. So I was like, all right, continued working with that. But then somewhere I decided to mute the horns and the keys and the strings, and I liked the drums that I was working with. And I said, well, let me try to go in another direction. And that's when, let's see, I muted that, and then I played this track. And that's just me, those keys, that is basically, that's a Rhodes, I think, and it was just one hit. That was on track number 5. All right, let me go back to the Perform tab. I'll go to track 5. So that, what you heard playing was just basically different versions of this. So you got different things you can do. So I like messing with the MPC because you start hitting, once you load these pads up, the ideas just start flowing because you're just tapping and moving and stuff around and bringing up sounds, bringing out sounds. But yeah, and you can get different ideas and you don't have to abandon them because, you know, you have the option to mute a track, come back to it. Later on, pull up that other idea and continue on and make another song, which I think is how a lot of producers end up having a signature sound. They have that one particular drum set or whatever, or drum patterns that they like. They alter a little bit and make 4 or 5 different songs around that. And you're like, dang, this song sounds just like the other song. Well, very similar. They mix well. As a DJ, you notice that. You're like, dang, these sounds mix really well together. An example of that would be like the Neptunes when they first, not first, but when they really started popping with like the sounds with the Do You Think I'm Jiggy remix and Noriega, when they were doing those beats for them, you could hear those sounds that they use frequently. You're like, okay, that's a Neptune's beat because they use those sounds a lot and they do them well. They use them well. So I think that's, you know, what's cool about the workflow for the MPC. You can get like that. You can come up with your favorite sound pack and use it and come up with limitless ideas versus with the Launchpad. You can only get so much mileage out of a sound pack before you need to move on to something else, or before you end up just chopping it to death, and then you'll still end up moving on to something else. Versus with the MPC, you got all these drum hits. You can just come up with different patterns. It's just really limited by what you want to do. All right, so what's cool here is the iMPC top strip. I want to go over that real quick. So if you did download it, I don't want you to be like, dang, I spent $25 on an app and he didn't really show me anything about it. So, all right, let's start from the top. Top left, we have, this is basically like the file button on a Windows program or even a Mac program. You hit file, you get that main menu with all the print, save, and all that other type stuff. So this is where you're able to get to your save menu. You can do a quick save. Everything saves as is and you keep it moving, or you can duplicate this because you might have a situation like I mentioned earlier where I was working with a beat going in one direction, but I decided to mute the main element of that song and create something different. Well, in that case, I would save it as a duplicate, rename it something else, and then I have the 2 different projects I can work with without overlapping or stepping on the toes of each other. Then you just want to save it and get out of it. Save and close. It doesn't close the save and close. It doesn't close the app itself. It just closes that particular project that you're in. You can choose to go into another project. So I got all kinds of different stuff. And I'm really being very candid by just going into some of these beats. I didn't really go through them all, but this particular beat, I can tell that I started putting it together into song form, because when I go into the song tab, I can see I have an intro that I created. I had the first 2 parts of my first section, then I have another section. So there's some movement in it. So hopefully this isn't too horrible of a beat. So let me go back to the main screen. This is your main screen. That was your menu. There's more stuff down here like audio copy, connect, and then, you know, your help stuff where if you want to watch videos and learn a lot more about the app, you can go to iMPC University. I'm gonna go over audio copy real quick. This is like when you're done, basically how you want to share your music. There's a couple ways you can share the music. You can go directly to YouTube and it will record a video of the MPC playing your beat, which is, I guess, cool for some people. That's not something I'm really doing yet. I may do some just to showcase that capability, but you can also export the stems of the project. So if you want to come from the app and bring it over into the main workstation of a studio that you're working in, you can export all that and then put it into whatever DAW that you use, and you can rearrange or continue arranging the beat that way. Lastly, you can do mix down, which allows you to save the actual project that you're working, the song as a whole, take it and you can save it to your iTunes files. That's a little bit awkward compared to other apps like the Launchpad and Blocs Wave, where it let me export, it let me share, and I can just, you know, save the song itself onto my device to do what I want. With this, you have to, with iMPC Pro, you have to export it into your iTunes files, and then from there, you can do what you want to do with the file. So that's the one thing I don't love about iMPC Pro 2, but it actually is not that bad of a issue that's stopping me from continuing to use it. Let's see, Connect. The Connect section is really dope because Ableton Link is a feature that came out a couple years ago, and what Ableton Link does, it combines, it's like almost like a MIDI protocol, like a MIDI time clock, but it allows you to, it's not that, but it's similar to. What it does is it allows me to have other devices playing certain apps, and if you're a DJ, Serato has Ableton Link as well. Novation, Blocs Wave, and Launchpad have Ableton Link. Obviously, Ableton Live does Ableton Link, and iMPC Pro, and a lot of music making apps have the Ableton Link feature. And what it does is, say I had this, let me turn it on. Ableton Link allows you to do this. So it's going to connect to other devices on my network that have Ableton Link engaged. So I'm going to do OK. I'm going to open up on my iPhone. Let's pull up Blocs Wave. And let's see. Go here. Let's see. Go into settings. And let me switch. Wrong one. Let's go to overhead. So this is on the phone. Let me go back. So here we are on the app on the phone. If you hit the menu button, the top 3 lines up there, you hit that, then go into your settings, then you see Ableton Link. Right now it's disabled, but if I go ahead and enable it, automatically it said 1 link. If you look down, you may have not noticed. Let me turn it off, turn it back on. On my iPad, it says 1 link. So now these are all using Ableton Link. I've got it turned on. It's connected to 1 app. If I had another device, iPhone or anything else, I would be able to also open like Launchpad on that other phone and turn on Ableton Link, and these will all have this, they'll all be in time with each other. So let me go back here. Let's switch back over to overhead. So we're back in the app. Ableton Link is turned on. Let's go back to the main menu. So if I play this, this is a beat. It's in song mode, so it's going to play through all these little sections, just like I had the sections in Blocs Wave and Launchpad. It's just going to go through. It's automated, so it's going to go through all of these. Now, if I go back into my app and I pull up a project, I do a new project. This new project is going to be, let's pull up some drums. You can't even hear it, but it's playing in time with the MPC. Now, I think you should be able to hear it. That was an awkward one, but let's try some percussion. So that's what's cool about Ableton Link. It lets you to keep all these devices, all these songs that I'm playing in sync with each other. So if I really wanted to, I could create in iOS symphony, if you will, or quartet. I could have like 4 different devices all linked up with Ableton Link, and each device is playing a different app. This could be playing Blocs Wave. This could be playing iMPC Pro. I could have a Launchpad on another app. I could actually even have my turntables running Serato with Ableton Link on it, and I believe it's the first device that has the link turned on. That's the master device. Everything else falls online and matches up. So say I'm running a beat on Serato Scratch or Serato DJ, and you probably have to have your beat grids on. I think sync is involved with it as well. But which is cool, you can have a beat going on your turntables, bring in a beat on the MPC, got that going, then bring in a sound on your iPhone. Now all these things would have to be connected directly into the same mixer, but you could have all these different devices and you're triggering sounds, because some of the sounds that are in Blocs Wave are not available in iMPC Pro. Most of them aren't, unless you export and import. The sounds that come with it aren't there, and the MPC is a blank slate, so it's up to you to put sounds into it. So that's what's really dope about the Ableton Link. It brings all that together. You don't have to worry about hitting play on both devices at the same time and hoping everything stays in sync long enough for you to get a good recording of it. No, all you do have to hit it on one and start it when you need to on the other one. Everything comes into place and everything comes in at the right speed. So that's what's really dope about being an iOS or iPad or iPhone producer, is because these devices are made to speak to each other intuitively. You don't have to do a whole lot. I mean, I just turned on a switch in the app and that brought it all together. That turned it on and linked them. Next time I'll do a demonstration, and I'll have, because I have another iPhone I could be using, so I can hook up all 3 of them and really show you how well Ableton Link comes together. But hopefully you got the idea from that quick demonstration. So let me close that. And notice when I turned off the phone, the 0 links notification came up, letting me know that this is no longer linked up. But let me go ahead and stop here. Let's go here. One of the last options under here also, nuke changes. Nuke changes is when you've had a long unproductive session. You've made all kinds of changes to a beat that you started out with as something you could try to work with, but then you've added so many sounds and changed so many things at the end of the session, you're like, what the heck was that? You can just do close without saving. It will nuke all the changes you made, and the project that you started with, it will be the project you end with. Also, for the more advanced users, if you're one of the users of the other MPC hardware that has connected to computers, I mean, there's programs that come along with it. The MPC that I'm used to, which is like the MPC 2500, that is years, decades old. The new ones like the Renaissance and the MPC one, I think is the name of it. There's a couple of other ones. Those, they're just way more advanced. They connect to your computer. You can use the MPC interface on your desktop, and this app allows you to take projects that you started here on your iPad and dump them into the MPC desktop and continue working from there. And you'll notice that with a lot of apps, they do allow you to dump into a desktop application to allow you to be able to finish the project on your computer, because sometimes, as much as I love working on these devices, it's a lot easier to just have your computer available and to be able to manipulate files that way and to edit, especially when you're editing. For me, right now, I'm still a mouse guy. I like to point, click, and I need that. But the more I work with the iOS devices or tablets in general, because my other computer is a Microsoft Surface and it's a touchscreen as well, I'm starting to learn to utilize my fingers more to drag and drop and spread and stretch WAV files. But it's a learning process, and you'll learn that and you'll see that as you are learning your way through these apps. So I know we didn't spend a lot of time looking at the iMPC app, and I have gone over, but I just wanted you to be able to see this from here, and I want you to also make note of the iMPC University. If you click on iMPC University, it will bring you up to a series of courses that you can go through to step-by-step learn the basics and even more advanced techniques within this app. It'll teach you how to record sounds into the app. It'll teach you how to edit within the app. It'll teach you how to export sounds and share on YouTube, make a full song. You're just going to start out with a blank slate and be importing sounds and arranging sounds and sections of your song and then sequencing your song until before you know it, you have a full song or a full beat that you can do something with. And this isn't just hip hop stuff. You can do this. You can use this with EDM, house, upbeat stuff, low downbeat stuff, atmospheric, anything that is the manipulation of sounds that you load into this app, you can make that genre of music. So that's a big thing for you to definitely remember to look into, and that is the iMPC University. I learned a lot when I first got the app. That I went through that. And then you also have different documents that you can go through. You can pull up basically like the online manual if you just want to read from section to section, but the iMPC University gives you assignments. You have to actually do stuff to progress through those lessons. All right, let me go back here. Let's go back here. And I'm going to jump back into my slideshow real quick. We ended off with iMPC Pro 2. Let me switch over here. I did mention last week about Roland ZenBeats. This is actually a cross-platform app. If you want to look into that, if you have Android devices, or even if you only have your PC or your Mac, you can also download programs from Roland. There's a Roland ZenBeats for any platform that you're using. So if you, other than Linux, but standard platforms, you can get this on there. And then next week is when we get into the DJing, and it's not just going to be turntables and controllers. This is an iOS based class, so we're going to show you how to do it on your mobile device. So we're going to be looking at the DJ Player Professional, which is a free app that you can get. If you want to be ready for next week, I suggest you go download that app. Track the DJ, it's a $10 app, but I definitely recommend that. I think it's one of the best apps for DJing out there. And then there's DJ Pro 2, which is a bit more expensive, but it's also the app that every time Apple does a special event for announcement of a new iPad or iPhone, and they want to talk about how great these devices go with DJing, they always use DJ Pro as the example app. So if you want to look into that, we'll look into that as well. We'll touch on that. But definitely I will spend a lot of time with Track the DJ, because that's the one I feel that best gets you into DJing on the iOS device. And we'll also talk about some basic theory of DJing for those who don't really know much about DJing. You know, it's the concept of going from one song to the next song. It's not just scratching or beat juggling or whatever you see on TV. There's a lot of other forms of DJing, and we'll get into that as well. But I appreciate y'all all for checking out the broadcast this second week. Last week was actually very interesting. That was my first time doing it. Not a whole lot of people on live at the time of the broadcast, but it was amazing to see as the week progressed that people were going back and spreading or sharing the video. And I think we're definitely like over 130 views on that first episode from last week. So I definitely want to ask you to please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, check back frequently for more videos. Hopefully you'll get notifications when I do post videos. Next week is DJing. If you have questions about what I've gone over so far, I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. If you want to contact me, you can hit me up here. My email, djlogic26@hotmail.com. On all social media, just look up Logisticalstyles and you can find me there. Just send me a message, a DM, and I'll answer any questions you have. Or even here, just leave a comment in the video. It's going to be available for playback as well. And last but not least, once again, I want to come back and touch on giving thanks to Fulton County's Arts and Culture, the whole Fulton County Board of Commissioners. This has been made possible by them. The grant that they provided to make this possible, to keep me being able to spread my art, has been really beneficial, and I hope you guys are learning something from it. And if you are, that would be really cool if you mentioned this or hashtagged it or said something on your social media that you did. Check out my iOS music production workshop, just to let folks know that it's actually happening. But the views are there. You can come back and see it anytime. I think this will also be shared with the FGTV channel that they have. I believe it's also a YouTube channel that they have that you can watch and see what's going on in Fulton County government. So definitely look at that. Big shouts to them for making it happen. And I hope y'all are all ready for next week when we jump into the DJing and having a lot of fun with that. So with all that said and done, I'm going to make my little exit. Let me pull up a beat so we can have some music to ride out to. Let's do this on Launchpad. Ride out to some neo soul, just randomness. Okay. With that said and done, I'll see y'all next week. Thank y'all for checking out the video. Come back 7 o'clock next Sunday. 2 more sessions. Your boy DJ Logic, Logisticalstyles, and I am out.